One of the most famous families on earth exists because of a murder trial that had nothing to do with them. Sounds insane. It's true. Here is every step between a Los Angeles courtroom in 1994 and a billion-dollar beauty empire today in order. Rewind to June 1994. Nicole Brown Simpson and Ronald Goldman are found dead outside a home in Brentwood, California. Within days, football legend O.J. Simpson becomes the primary suspect. He needs a defense team, and fast. One of the men he calls isn't a criminal lawyer by trade. He's a longtime friend from college, someone he trusts more than he trusts most attorneys in Los Angeles. That friend's name is Robert Kardashian. You already know that last name. You just didn't know why yet. Robert Kardashian joins Simpson's defense almost as a personal favor. He isn't the lead strategist. He isn't the one cross-examining witnesses on television every day. But on June 17, 1994, during the now infamous slow-speed freeway chase, it's Kardashian who stands at a podium and reads Simpson's rambling letter aloud to a bank of live cameras. That single moment puts his face and his surname into tens of millions of living rooms at once. Overnight, a private family lawyer becomes one of the most recognizable men in America. Here's where the story stops being about O.J. Simpson and starts being about something else entirely. The trial that follows isn't just a court case. According to journalist Jeffrey Toobin's account of the proceedings, it becomes one of the most heavily covered legal events in American history. Court TV builds a chunk of its entire national audience around gavel-to-gavel coverage. Regular daytime programming gets interrupted for it, week after week, for the better part of a year. People who had never watched a legal case in their lives suddenly knew the name of every attorney sitting at that defense table, Kardashian included. Question: what happens to a surname after millions of people hear it on the evening news, night after night, for more than a year? It stops being just a name. It becomes recognizable, familiar, the kind of name a television producer remembers years later when they're hunting for their next big idea. Think about who else sat at that defense table. Johnny Cochran, Robert Shapiro, F. Lee Bailey. Prosecutor Marcia Clark led the case for the state. Every one of those names became, for a period of about 16 months, part of the daily American vocabulary, the same way a president's name or a pop star's name might be. Most of those names faded back into ordinary life once the verdict was read. One of them didn't fade. It kept circulating quietly through a family that was about to do something none of the other attorneys' families ever thought to do. That's Domino #1, and it's the strangest one of all. The Kardashian surname enters the American vocabulary not through fashion, not through music, not through Hollywood connections, but through a murder trial broadcast into every home in the country. Domino 2 follows almost immediately. Robert Kardashian and his ex-wife, Kris, are now minor public figures purely by association. Reporters want interviews. Talk shows want them as guests, even after the trial ends. A family that had, up to that point, been comfortably private is suddenly, whether they asked for it or not, part of the national entertainment conversation. Kris, by most accounts, doesn't shy away from the attention. She understands faster than almost anyone around her that visibility is a kind of currency. Domino 3 adds another layer. Kris later marries Olympic gold medal decathlete Bruce Jenner. Now there are two separate threads of American celebrity braided into one household. Courtroom notoriety on one side, Olympic athletic fame on the other. Two different reasons for cameras to show up at the same front door. Still, at this point, nobody is talking about a beauty empire. Nobody is talking about billion-dollar valuations. This is still just a blended family living at the edge of fame, not yet inside it. That gap between recognizable and famous for something of their own is exactly where the next several years matter most. Fast forward to the early 2000s. The Kardashian children have grown up watching, up close, exactly how the machinery of fame operates. One of them, Kim, becomes close friends with Paris Hilton, at the time one of the most photographed young women on the planet. Kim works alongside her for a while, organizing her closet, appearing beside her at parties, showing up in the same paparazzi photographs. She isn't the story yet. She's standing next to the story, but she's learning in real time exactly how tabloid attention gets manufactured and sustained. This is the part of the story most people skip over because it looks so ordinary. A teenager hanging around a more famous friend, running errands, showing up in the background of photographs isn't a dramatic scene. It doesn't feel like a turning point. But fame, at the level tabloid media operates on, isn't only built through grand gestures. It's built through proximity, repetition, and timing. The same three ingredients that had already worked once before, back in 1994, just with a different cast of characters standing in front of the cameras. Question: what does it actually take to turn standing next to the story into being the story? In 2007, a private recording of Kim becomes public without her consent. It's an ugly, exploitative moment, and it should be named as exactly that. It is not a triumphant business decision, but tabloid media, already primed to care about anyone orbiting Paris Hilton's world, suddenly cares a great deal about the name Kim Kardashian. In the coldest possible television industry math, an invasion of privacy becomes, however unfairly, a spike in searchable, recognizable name equity. That same year, E! Entertainment Television makes a decision that quietly connects every domino that came before it. The network greenlights a reality show following the entire Kardashian-Jenner household, not a show built around one person, but around the whole family. The producers, including Ryan Seacrest, are betting on something specific and calculated, that the surname already means something to American audiences, that over a decade of low-level background recognition will make people curious enough to actually tune in. Keeping Up with the Kardashians premieres later that year, and on paper it shouldn't have worked. A reality show centered on a family whose most famous prior moment was a defense attorney reading a letter into television cameras during a murder investigation is not an obvious hit. And yet the built-in familiarity does precisely what the network was hoping for. Millions of people tune in, not because the Kardashians had accomplished anything extraordinary yet, but because their name was already, quietly, sitting somewhere in the back of the public's memory, waiting to be reactivated. Here's the pivot point in the whole chain. Once cameras are rolling on a weekly basis, the family stops being famous for a legal footnote and starts building something that belongs entirely to them. Kim launches a series of fragrances, then a mobile game that, at its peak, was reportedly generating serious daily revenue. Then KK Girl You Beauty. Then Skims, a shapewear and clothing company that would eventually be valued in the billions of dollars. Kris Jenner becomes the manager and architect behind nearly all of it, running the family less like a household and more like a media conglomerate with a single unified brand. Ask yourself this: how many of those business decisions would have been possible without the decade of built-in name recognition that came before the show ever existed? Consider the scale of what came after. Skims has been valued at multiple billions of dollars. Kim Kardashian has hosted Saturday Night Live. She has appeared in law school coursework discussions and later actually pursued a legal apprenticeship of her own. An odd, almost poetic echo of the courtroom that made her family's name recognizable in the first place. Kris Jenner is regularly described in business coverage as one of the most effective talent managers in modern entertainment, credited with turning a household into a portfolio of separate, self-sustaining brands. None of that happens in a vacuum. Every deal, every campaign, every magazine cover rests on a foundation of familiarity that was poured in 1994, decades before any of these products existed. None of that recognition erases where it came from. It just gets built on top of it, layer after layer, brand after brand, until the origin story fades so far into the background that most people watching an ad for Skims today have no idea it traces back, several steps removed, to a Los Angeles courtroom 3 decades earlier. That's the real chain, laid out end to end. A murder trial put a family's surname into the national vocabulary. A friendship with an already famous socialite kept that name circulating through the tabloid ecosystem. A privacy violation, however wrongly, spiked public curiosity at the exact right moment. A television network cashed in the recognition that trial had created over a decade earlier. A business empire was then built on the platform that reality show provided. Every single step depended on the one before it. Remove any one domino, the freeway chase, the letter, the marriage to Bruce Jenner, the friendship with Paris Hilton, the 2007 leak, the E! Entertainment pitch meeting, and there's a real chance none of the rest happens the way it did, or happens at all. None of this is meant to erase the seriousness of where the chain begins. Two people lost their lives in June 1994. A trial that should have been solely about justice became, for better or worse, one of the defining television events of the decade. The Kardashian family's rise doesn't happen because of anything they did inside that courtroom. It happens because the trial made their surname unforgettable, and unforgettable surnames are exactly what modern media and modern business are built to monetize. So the next time a Skims ad shows up on your phone or a headline breaks about the family's latest brand valuation, remember where that name first became impossible to forget. Not a fashion show, not a chart-topping single, a murder trial, a slow-speed freeway chase, and one lawyer reading a letter into a bank of television cameras back in 1994. The most famous family on earth still exists today because of a murder trial they were never actually on trial for. If a connection this strange existed the whole time and you never once noticed it, that's exactly what this channel exists to find. Hit like if your brain just did a double take reading that last line. Subscribe if you want more real historical butterfly effects delivered the same way, chain by chain, no fake links, no invented quotes, no shortcuts. And drop your craziest butterfly effect idea in the comments below. Two events you'd never in a million years connect. I read every single one, and the next video on this channel might just be your idea.